Have a few things to talk about if you want to talk about something or um, get some information, just drop it in the chat. I got a couple of things I want to go over. Um, and the whole emphasis of today is the chaos they're creating. And the chaos is very, very intentional. They're not doing this like, oh my God, kind of lost control of this one. Um, if you actually spent the time like I did prior to the election, more than a year before the election, I read Project 2025 and I started doing reading around the characters that were involved in writing that fucking thing. Okay. It's a fascist manifesto with theocratic nationalism, greed, grievance, and bullshit being its biggest motivators. So that when they're creating all this chaos, they're literally trying to stress out Americans so bad that we'll just disconnect. And I mean, this is bad. But personally, I've been in a lot worse situations. It would scare the hell out of me a lot more than what these Goombas could do. So I'm not giving up, and I like to see many of the voices that I'm following right now. They're standing up, doubling down, and saying, "There's no way we're going to shut up." Okay, because you keep doing chaotic things for chaotic purposes. You're trying to create a panic, a mania, a distortion of the truth and distortion of reality. And one of the things, this is not the most important thing, I'll get into the really important chaos they're getting to. Um, uh, First thing was I saw on YouTube. I saw the interview with my least favorite interviewer. I think he sucks even more than Bill Maher. Piers Morgan talking to Nick Fuentes, the groper incel Latino Nazi. You know, your parents must be proud. Must be as proud as Stephen Miller's Jewish parents. Um, he's being interviewed by Piers Morgan, and unabashedly, unapologetically, um, he admits to a couple of things I didn't know about the guy. Um, I knew he was a groper. Okay. Part of the weird underbelly of the MAGA movement. Because it's broken into two factions. I've talked about this before. Kirk led one faction, and the groper kid shot him. So this was gang on gang violence. Um, I wish it didn't happen. I don't. We have enough gun violence. I hate every time I pick up the night and I see another shooting, like we had one in Stockton at a birthday party. Fucking ridiculous. So I get upset no matter who gets hit. Okay, it's unneeded, unwarranted violence that just permeates our society, and it doesn't fix anything. Shooting Kirk in the neck and watching him bleed out on the floor didn't solve the fucking thing. But Nick Fuentes is definitely capitalizing on Kirk's murder, and uh, he mentions to Piers Morgan that he is also an incel who's never had an adult relationship slash sexual relationship with anybody, man, woman, however you may identify. He's never had sex, but he wants to be the world's biggest. I stick my finger in your face and I'm going to tell you how to live your life. You need to get married. You need to have babies. Hey, Nick, you realize you do actually have to have sexual intercourse to get a woman pregnant, right? You're not going to have the beautiful little babies unless you actually have sexual intercourse. How are you going to do that as this angry, asexual persona? I don't understand that. I really don't. And he is really a culture warrior about how people should live this nuclear family, ultra patriotic, ultra theocratic, ultra nationalist lifestyle. And he's telling you, if you're not a straight woman and a straight man married, you're living your life wrong. Says fucking who? Can't be you, because you've never been even in a relationship. You've never even had sex. Okay. I've been in a relationship with my wife for 40 years. Okay. We've had 3 children together. Okay. Do I need your little moronic Nazi ass to tell me how to live my life? No, I do not. Now, I'm not criticizing asexuals or people who just choose not to be in a relationship. You can be single if you want to be single. Okay. This is America. You can do what the fuck you want to do. As long as you don't hurt anybody, and as long as it doesn't involve children and puppies. Okay. Do whatever the fuck makes you happy. Pursuit of happiness used to be a thing in this country. Okay. You don't want to have sex with anybody? Don't have sex with anybody. But don't sit there on your little podcast whining about the fertility rate in America dropping. Fuck you. Shut up. You're an idiot. You're a gaslighting, propagandist, fucking idiot. And you really need to shut the fuck up. The only thing enjoyable about watching that very painful interview, because any interview with Piers Morgan is painful to me. Even when he looks like a fool, like Scott Galloway made both Piers Morgan and Kevin O'Leary look like fools a week or two ago, over their man love over Elon Musk, one of the worst persons on earth. Okay, you're praising a guy who is literally racist, who's literally demeaning to everybody, who literally doesn't kiss his ass. The guy that's got baby mamas chasing him with legal papers because he does not pay or visit his children. And he's got 13 baby mamas now? Again, another person I don't need advice from. Okay. I've been in a stable, happy marriage for 40 years now. Okay. I don't need a dickhead like Piers Morgan, Kevin O'Leary, or Elon Musk telling me what's good and bad about my life or my marriage or my relationship. So all these right wingers could shut the fuck up. Close it. You don't make any sense anyways. But I just thought it was really interesting. And again, I want to make it very clear. I am not picking on bullying, and you should not be picking on or bullying anybody because of their lifestyle choices. I don't care if they're gay or asexual or whatever. Leave people the fuck alone unless they're actually doing something wrong. Okay? My point is, Fuentes has made a very big career and made some money. Okay? And got paid some money. You got to remember that part. He's on the payroll. Keeps saying he's not. And Tim Pool keeps saying he's not. They're both full of shit. And you said some pretty ugly stuff, that we have to do certain things that you don't even do yourself. That's why you should shut the fuck up. I am not taking relationship advice after putting in 40 years of hard work with my family, my wife and my children, my in-laws, my extended family, trying to be a decent guy. I'm not going to take advice from an asshole like Nick Fuentes, the self-imposed incel asexual moron who keeps telling us how we should live our lives. Bite me. The corruption and the chaos, the corruption is definitely linked to the chaos. You wouldn't be having all this chaos if there wasn't so much corruption to hide in the background. And the corruption is accelerating, and I think it's actually going to get worse over time. And I'll give you an example. This Texas, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's fucking wealthy. Did a whole bunch of fraud and illegal filings over a sports arena and concert center in Texas. He got caught. He got caught by the FBI. And what he did was like the typical dirty financial tricks that are pulled by the ultra wealthy. So this time, someone finally got caught. So all it took to make his list of charges go away for fraud and defrauding the government and wire fraud and all the other stuff he did was his attorney, former congressperson Trey Gowdy. All he had to do was play one round of golf with Trump. And on the eighth hole, say, hey, pardon my client. That was a great swing, Mr. President. Pardon my client. Okay. That's it. The charges are gone. Because Trey Gowdy, a corrupt attorney, asked a corrupt president before even the trial started. They just arrested his client. He was just indicted and arrested like a couple of months ago. The trial isn't even scheduled till next year. Okay? The guy's already got a pardon. Why? Because Trey Gowdy knows how to put Trump's balls in his mouth and tickle them to his fancy. That's all it takes. Rub his ego, lick his balls, your client gets a pardon. Your dad gets a pardon. That's what happened in Texas with a Democrat and his wife. Literally caught with $600,000 of bribes from Mexican banks who do business with the cartels and the worst state-owned company in the world out of Azerbaijan. Okay? He's another guy. Will never even see trial. Why? Oh, Mr. President, you have a large penis and you're the best thing to ever happen to America and the world and you're our new Jesus. Pardon my dad. That's what happened. That's what actually happened. Before the trial even started. What did the Democratic Texas politician do right after he received the pardon? Fawned over Trump. Then Trump turned him around and immediately attacked him for not switching parties, not turning from a Democrat to a Republican. The quid pro quo was he needed another vote in Congress. Okay. The quid pro quo is staring you in the fucking face. What crime do you have when you have a quid pro quo? You got bribery. What's in the Constitution as a no-no? The big B, bribery. Okay? The quid pro quo was right there. Why isn't anybody doing anything about this? Why? Because the entire government, with the exception of maybe a few people. Hey, Pamela, thanks for tuning in. Except for a few people in the Senate and the House, the majority of Congress is absolutely corrupt and lost in space. They don't have any morals. They don't have any ethics. They couldn't find their ass with a map. That's how lost they are. Okay? The entire executive branch is now a set of Goombas running a mafioso scheme. It's like Tony Soprano got elected president, and everybody has to pay fealty to the boss. The federal court system, the district courts are still in there with us. Most of the upper level courts and the Supreme Court are totally lost. They no longer work for America. If you're having a happy hour drink, toast. I'm having a beer and some rye. And I have evidence that the Supreme Court has just walked off the reservation. They are no longer a rational, functioning constitutional court. They are a partisan political committee out to do the bidding of a hijacked major political party in the country. They are not adjudicating laws. They're setting up profit advantages, and I'll tell you an exact example of this right here. I have my notes up here. They're setting up advantages and profit for friends of the administration, political allies, and fellows they meet at the club. Not the club you're a member of. No, you can't get in there. I know I can't get in. I'm Irish. They don't let the Irish in. Okay? They never liked us. I had to explain it to a couple of my black friends. They hate the Irish even more than they hate you. But here's what's happening in the Supreme Court. There was a case recently where a pretty big defense contractor, Flora Corporation, completely went off the reservation, did not follow the Army's instructions, did not do what the Army told them to do in person and in writing. Okay. And this was about the evac out of Bagram Air Force Base when it all went to shit, which is exactly the way it was going to end. I said 6 years before we got out of Afghanistan, I said, you're going to watch helicopters or something similar leave the embassy roof, just like we saw in Vietnam. Okay. And it was a different kind of shit show this time, but it was a shit show nonetheless. So the plaintiff is Mr. Winston Hensley. He was critically injured by a suicide bomber. Everybody remembers the news where the suicide bomber attacked the evacuation at Bagram. And the bomber was employed by a contractor who was working for the U.S. military. The lawsuit argues that Flora Corporation failed to properly supervise the bomber, even though the government military had already concluded that Flora Corporation was negligent in the attack. Okay, the Army had already determined who was at fault. Okay, it was Flora for not following any of the general's instructions. Okay, and the staff officers. When a contractor shows up to do something for us in the Army, they get specific instructions and they're supervised. Like when I was in West Germany, we had the Mainz Castell, which was one of the biggest refurb plants outside the United States. Lot of civilians worked there. German, American, French, Polish civilians all worked there. But they worked under the direct control and training and doctrine of the materials command for the Army. Okay. Contractors aren't allowed just to do whatever the fuck they want to do. That's not how military contracting works at all. Now, under a case that comes back from 1988, there are some cases, and there's a big case called Boyle versus United Technology Corporation, that military contractors sometimes get state-provided immunity only if they were specifically following government specifications, government orders, and government logistics and processes. Okay. Again, they can't just walk off the reservation and do whatever the fuck they want to do because they're getting paid by the Army. That's not how it works. Okay. Some sun leaking through here in my face. So the difference between the Boyle case and this Flora Corporation case that was argued a few weeks back in the Supreme Court is in the case with the United Technology. United Technology was doing exactly what the military had told them to do, and an injury was caused anyways. Okay. So basically they said, well, you can't use state law, tort laws to go after a military contractor if they were following exactly what the Army or Marines or Air Force, whoever hired them, was telling them to do. And it's a very limited decision, the Boyle versus United Technologies from 1988. It's a very limited decision, and it's basically designs a decision framework that if they were not following the military's guidelines, then they are liable. Okay. Now, what happened in the case a couple of weeks ago in the oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court? Well, to give you the TLDR, Kavanaugh went ape shit. Yeah, the guy that should have never been on the Supreme Court, like the woman I went, now woman, we're the same age. When we were kids, we went through K through 12 together, all the years back in New England, went to school. I'm still in touch with her, even though she still lives in New England. She was ranting online on Facebook when Kavanaugh was considered, and being a very strong-minded woman now, she went after him hard, up to and including we shouldn't be installing rapists in the Supreme Court. So just one example of many friends I had that was like, yeah, this guy does not need to be on the Supreme Court. Well, he kind of proved he shouldn't be on the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago with this Flora Corporation lawsuit. It started saying the hearing started saying Kavanaugh and Sotomayor was like, okay, the immunity granted to contractors only applies. There is an immunity, but it only applies if you were following all the rules, the regs, the written contract, the written instructions, the officers in the field telling you what to do. If you just ignore any of these things, then you're on your own. But if you're following everything, you're okay. Um, Many reports have Brett Kavanaugh being, and I'm quoting here, conspicuously receptive to the contractor arguments. And that was just the beginning of the shit show in the Supreme Court hearing. Kavanaugh had a meltdown. He interrupted the military contractor's lawyer. He interrupted the government lawyer from the Solicitor General's office. He interrupted half of his colleague justices on the bench. It got so bad, Gorish had to intervene. Okay. That's how wacky, adamant, accusatory. He just came up with a flurry of interruptions, objections, questions. He literally interrupted everybody who tried to make the point about immunity. It was already decided by Boyle versus United Technology. What we have to describe here is whether or not it falls within Boyle. Kavanaugh wasn't having it. Okay. What Kavanaugh seemed to really present in the court hearing is an insane level of bias, an insane lack of independence in a justice. He took a almost religious stance about military contractors and how they were impervious to lawsuits, which has never been the case, ever. Okay. Not even in declared wars were they 100% impervious to all immunity. No, it's never the way it worked. Kavanaugh, and again, this is the reason why people like Kavanaugh, Roberts, Comey Barrett, this is the reason why that new batch of justices were put in. They're there to do bidding. They're not there to decide case law. They're not there to determine constitutionality. They're there to do the bidding of the people they consider friendly to them. We already had this problem with Thomas and Alito. Now Kavanaugh comes up and he goes, not only can I be corrupt and biased, but I can have a spastic meltdown in the middle of a hearing trying to derail other people's arguments, which I'm supposed to be absorbing, considering, and asking pointed questions about. These weren't pointed questions. These were throwing fits against both lawyers and most of the justices he was on the panel with that day. And what this is really leaning towards, and this is the scary part, is Kavanaugh is jumping into, just like so many other people that are sycophants and acolytes of Dear Leader Pornstar Humper, they think their job is to further Dear Leader's political theater. So instead of asking pointed questions like Sotomayor was asking or Gorish was asking, okay, because when Gorish wants to be on point, boy, is he on point. Okay, a couple of oral hearings and write-ups I've watched or listened to. Yeah, Gorish, when he wants to get in the meat and potatoes, he'll get in the meat and potatoes. Okay, this is not what Kavanaugh did. Kavanaugh was trying to up front say, this is not even a possibility, regardless of standing law, because how dare you criticize a military contractor? Okay, I can only assume, and this is just an assumption, it's not an accusation, because we've had other Supreme Court justices take bribes. Alito, Thomas, okay. Which military contractor is paying his rent, or paying his mama's rent, or buying him an RV, or sending him on trips, luxury trips that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you're free because I know you'll do what I want later. And they even had a plan. The back rooms corrupt part of the GOP strategists years ago had a plan for Thomas. They even put it on play. Oh my God, he's a maligned public servant. Oh, he's not going to make it unless we take care of him. That's how it all started. Oh, you're not nice enough to Thomas. Therefore, we have to buy him an RV. And what is really amazing by Kavanaugh's action in the hearing is this was not a fog of war case. Like a battle was going on and something happened and somebody got hurt. Da, 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 da. Um, this isn't the matters at hand in the Flora case, the Flora Corporation. The matter at hand in the Flora Corporation is, did you or did you not follow the rules, regulations, and instructions provided to you by the Army? And if you did not, then the decision matrix is already presented by Boyle versus United Technology, 1988. Okay. Kavanaugh came in and wanted to cut the knees off the rest of the Supreme Court and cut the knees off the Boyle decision all in one fell swoop. And he was going to get mad about it. You know, get all teary-eyed. How dare you think about using tort law against a military contractor? When did they become absolutely immune to misconduct and liability? They're not. And the fact is, Kavanaugh's argument wasn't just legally weak because there's a standing decision. It was weird and panicked. Ah, they're coming after my beloved military contractors. In the kind of the same tone, they go, oh, they're coming after the Christians. They're canceling Christmas. Shit, I'm an atheist. I celebrate Christmas every fucking year. Get off my back. Okay? I don't think the baby Jesus was born on Christmas. Neither do a lot of religious scholars. Uh, and I don't think Jesus was a real person. There's no evidence of it. None. Zero. There was some indicators like 20, 30 years ago, but one study was completely debunked as just plain scientifically wrong. And the other one was a fraud, was fabricated evidence. So the last two, was somebody probably named Jesus of Nazareth back then? Probably. That's like Bob of Minneapolis. Probably true. Okay. All the other icing on the cake true? Probably not. Most likely not. Okay. But Christmas is still a great time. We decorate the house. I put up my Christmas lasers and we have the red, green, and blue lights dancing off the walls. We'll put up a tree here pretty soon. Yeah, you'll probably see me with my Santa hat on soon. But that was the kind of tone. It was like, oh, you're canceling Christmas. Oh, you're canceling military contractors. Totally weird, totally panicked. And the thing is, he also presented, I guess, what a layperson would generally call false evidence. Like he invented that a hypothetical general would have to testify in state court and they would have to start reviewing each one of the military orders and decisions made by that general to see if the contractor was liable. Those weren't questions in front of the courts. So Kavanaugh made that up. He literally shouted over other attorneys and other jurists. That's inappropriate. That lacks acumen and discipline. It also shows bias and corruption. And the major thing and the major problem I have, he mischaracterized the core legal issue. He tried to invent another core legal issue on the fly during the oral hearing. That's not cool. And taking this they're trying to cancel Christmas and Christianity, overplaying that hand. Kavanaugh really overplayed his hand here. He's treating military contractors as inseparable from the military itself, from the service members themselves. No one's ever said that. You literally just made that up 5 seconds ago. And he was adamant about it. And the weirdest thing about Kavanaugh's reaction is he wanted to extend immunity further than Boyle and further than the case was asking for. Okay, so how can I not see this as corrupt political theater? This is performance theater to change the public opinion of the decision, not adjudicate a decision. That's a problem. That's a big problem. And you go through Kavanaugh's history, it isn't pretty. If I'm not a devout follower of the Supreme Court, but I catch cases which I think are going to be important. And you've already seen like this pattern with Kavanaugh. He is pro-corporate. He is pro-corporate socialism. Okay. Just like most of Congress, Mr. Global was talking about this the other day about how, both parties always argue, except they don't argue about where the money goes. Right to the top 1%. Right to the top 0.1%. Okay. Supreme Court's now got that ball. I'm going to decide where the money goes. Kavanaugh. I'm going to decide where the money goes because I'm pro-corporate. I'm pro-corporate socialism. Okay. By the way, what we're experiencing, what we've been experiencing since Reagan, I wrote a whole essay of this. The American dream was assassinated in 1978. Capitalism died in 1981. It's been replaced with corporate socialism. So all these cries for more socialism to fix the socialism don't make any fucking sense to me. You literally have a system where the profits are privatized, the liabilities are socialized. That's exactly what you saw in the bank bailouts. You should have seen the Countrywide CEO and his board all go to prison. You should have seen the Lehman Brothers board go to prison. You should have seen some of the traders at AIG, Goldman, and Lehman go to prison. Okay, because only two countries got the bank crisis right: Iceland and Vietnam. Iceland jailed their bankers. Vietnam shot them. Both good outcomes in my book. Letting them go without a single charge, then trying to blame a $12 trillion black hole caused by the big banks. They try to blame Abacus Financial home loans in New York City. Which, by the way, their default rate was a tiny fraction of the general default rate that caused the bank crisis. And like the New York Times literally printed an article, "We found who caused the financial crisis." A house with 1/200,000th of the asset of Lehman Brothers, maybe 1/20,000th of an asset margin toward Lehman, wasn't Lehman's fault. Wasn't the big boy's fault. It was this Chinese-run, unowned financial loan house in New York City. And Kavanaugh has shown his stripes. If the decision is made, it will be made to protect the corporation, the corporate interest, the driving of the money toward the ownership class, that is the recipients of the dividends of the corporation. And he'll do anything to protect a corporate defendant and corporate socialism itself. Okay. That's why he's on the Supreme Court. Not because he's a good judge, because he's a good judge if he plays balls with the corporate socialists. As long as he makes a decision that keeps funneling the money in the right direction, away from the working class, away from the middle class, straight to the top of the top. That's the only place they want to see money funneling right now. And they'll enforce it through statute regulation and court decision now. Like if we ever get out of corporate socialism in my lifetime, I'll be surprised. Because I thought we were going to lose the entire economy in the bank bailout. And the deviousness of their plan, I have to admit, it worked. Sucked for us, but it worked. They just decided to rescue the assets and leave Americans behind. That was 2008. Okay. Almost 20 years ago. That's when they made a eyes wide open decision to leave working Americans and the middle class behind so they could protect asset values that enrich the top 1%. Tax-free lifestyle. They get to pay taxes when they wish, if they wish. You know, they expect money out of your paycheck every month. Okay? If they see your boss put in a bunch of paychecks and your income didn't match your deductions, and you do that year over year and they don't see a filing, guess who's going to be at your front door? A police tank. Is a police tank ever showing up at Jeff Bezos' house? No. No. There's a reason the tanks are on the street. It's not crime. It's enforcement of policy. Now, the bad outcome of this case in Kavanaugh's little shit fit, he seems to want to use national security branding, marketing, and establish complete corporate immunity across the board. They're people, but they're people with no liability. Now, we know they're not people. They're a legal fiction. Okay? It's a publicly registered entity created by legal fiction. That's what a corporation is. The people actually responsible are the human beings that run the corporation. But we've separated the wealthy corporate runners away from everybody else legally. They cannot be held responsible for what they do. Only in very certain cases do they get pinched. Like, go back to Bernie Madoff. Why did Bernie Madoff get pinched, then get thrown in the can forever and a day? He robbed other wealthy people, not affluent people, not rich people. He robbed wealthy people. That's how he ended up in jail for 80 years. Till he corrupt. As long as a corporate entity, as long as a persona rips off the middle class, that's 100% acceptable. It's doing good business. You make a profit by any means possible. If it means destroying the middle class that made you wealthy in the first place, this is the thing that just like blows me away. The only reason the billionaires in America are billionaires is because of the American middle class and our expenditures. It's our taxes. It's our money. It's our money. The government spending is our money. Our personal spending is our money. So basically what Kavanaugh wants is he wants it now. If a contract can go up, war zone, up, war on terror, up, deportations. All they have to do is utter something that sounds like, oh my God, this is a military necessity. No liability whatsoever. And it's already bad enough. Like when you get defective gear and it hurts you, soldiers can't sue in most cases. You know, it's like when they put the new 92 Beretta F 9mm pistols out, the first batch. Luckily, MPs, we carried the 45s a little longer, thank God, because the first batch of Beretta 92F sucked. Ask the grunt where the slide He was at the target range practicing. The slide broke. The slide retainer block snapped because the metallurgy was bad, and the slide came back and hit him right in the head. Can't sue. There's a lot of barriers already with these military contractors, military products, military purchasing programs, which remember are never little. Okay. The military doesn't even achieve consciousness unless they're spending $1 billion. And it's disturbing when a justice right there and then, right in front of everybody. Remember, this is an oral argument that's being transmitted on audio out in real time. There's only a few seconds delay. And in real time, he just goes, I know you're bringing a core legal issue to the Supreme Court. I'm going to ignore that and make up something completely else. Why? Because I got to protect my corporate homies. The corporate homies who gave up on capitalism. We're a corporate socialist system heading toward communism. And I'm not just throwing rocks. I'm not being hyperbolic here. Trump literally seized parts of Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA. You don't get any more commie than that. Then the next week, he turns around and goes, I want 25% of the Alaska Mining Trust. And the first thing that went through my head was, you mean you want to rename it the Donald J. Trump Mining Trust and you want to cut? Because this whole security document that he put out is about making money. It's not about securing the world, securing our allies, defeating the fucking assholes that are causing the world's problems. He's literally in league with the world's worst problem right now, Vladimir Putin. Okay. His BFF is Orban out of Hungary, a pure authoritarian communist dictator. So what I'm saying, they're giving up. They gave up on capitalism. Okay. And they gave it up 40 years ago. Your late stage capitalism memes are a little late. That's what I'm saying. Now we're full blown corporate socialists. We got judges who will only think in corporate socialism. And we got a president who goes, corporate socialism isn't bad enough. I want to go full commie. Because a lot of the regulations and a lot of the rules they're presenting are in fact communist. Why? Because they remind me of East Germany. I had an experience a lot of Americans didn't have. Well, I have two experiences a lot of Americans didn't have. I was both a military and a civilian cop. Very few people have done that. Okay. But I was one of the people who got the theater commander let us go into East Germany on the Allied excursion, and I got to go in to the East. I got to see it with my own eyes. And I already knew a lot about it because my wife's great-grandmother grandmother, my daughter's great-grandmother, got stuck behind the wall. So we already knew what life behind the wall was like because we had a person telling us what it was like. Okay. Growing up in East Berlin or living in East Berlin sucked. West Berlin was practically Valhalla in comparison. But he abandons the core legal issue because he has an agenda. And that agenda is anti-American, anti-capitalist, anti-legal, anti-law, anti-constitution. He wants to create a protective barrier. It could be because his friends at the country club own those companies. It could be because he's invested in those companies directly, buying individual stocks or buying their debt notes, their debenture notes. Investment in vehicle I really like. I own a bunch of Corning's debt. Debt notes are really good returns. He abandoned the core legal issue. He became combative in a hearing. Not a little combative. He went after almost everybody in the room. He created hypotheticals that were somewhere between just not true, not real, not the question at hand, to literally apocalyptic statements that this will destroy the military if we hold a contractor who did not do their job properly liable, which is totally ridiculous. Um, and he's demanding a level of immunity the law doesn't call for, the case doesn't call for, and no one has ever considered before in the United States. Now, I know exactly why Kavanaugh is doing this. It's the same way Pete Hegseth is acting the way he is, or Kristi Noem, or Tom Holland, or name a douchebag with power right now. They're all emulating their leader, their daddy. Well, if daddy talks like this and daddy acts like this, I've got to act like this. I have to be a total douchebag on overtime. Because they're not even answering questions anymore. They're just yelling at people. They're freaking out on people. And the sad thing is, if you've been watching any of this over the last decade or so, I've been writing and speaking online about politics and problems and the deconstruction of America now for, oh, almost close to 20 years now. Been on Substack for 3 years after I left the other platforms that I didn't like them. Facebook sucks. Um, but I've watched this decay over time. I've watched the actors in the background order the deconstruction, and these lemmings just do it out of hand. Okay, so when you see Kavanaugh pull this shit, and you see him do it in the way he did it so angrily and so performative, you've got to you've got to question the motivations, the bias, and the possible corruption. If you're not taking that into consideration, you're flying blind. And nothing justified what Kavanaugh did in court. Um, and it's not just my opinion. A couple of legal scholars have already opined this publicly, that you can't have a justice who thinks his job is to rewrite the law in real time based on a preformed bias and a preformed connection to certain parties. And he's also trying to play a concept, I think, a little too far. Like, I was reading on the Hill, somebody was op-eded this, and Kavanaugh is trying to frame military contractors as this uniquely federal interest, and only the federal government, because the fix is in at the federal level. Only the federal government can adjudicate or enjoin a military contractor. Now, this could go wrong in 100 different ways. Let's say you have a military contractor down in Alabama, Fort Rucker, Fort McClellan, where I did basic, Fort McClellan, MP school. Also home of the chemical school, which is kind of scary. Um, even though I was qualified NBC and also had the NBC clearance, um, I still hate those things. um, let's say a contractor, let's say at the chemical school, that's really dangerous stuff. Okay, they don't store the chemicals properly, or they're disposing the property, and they screw something up, and they ended up gassing an employee, releasing noxious chemicals into the neighborhoods adjacent to the base or whatever. He's trying to lock you out of any adjudication of their liability and their misconduct. Blanket get out of jail free card. Why? Because it's the military and we're going to use the military, and it seems military contractors, to do some evil, unconstitutional shit. And we want that legal threshold to be so high, even if we purposely, with the forethought, do illegal and unconstitutional things, can be held accountable. Okay? That's their plan. And trying to say that whatever military contractor is this quasi sovereign entity, this is a setup. This is a legal setup to really, really change the way we deal with liability in this country. And I personally can't separate it from what's going on in the military, especially off the coast of Venezuela right now. Hey, we're in a drug war because of fentanyl. No, 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 not fentanyl. Fentanyl, not cocaine. Cocaine. It's because of cocaine. Okay, Sparky, that's not where most of the cocaine, and that's where none of the fentanyl is made or transported. But okay, you do you. This morning they seized an oil tank. So all the people, and a lot of them leaning on the left on Substack and Blue Sky, going, "This is a war for oil. This is Iraq Part 2." Well, I was like, we didn't even get the oil in Iraq. That's how bad it went there. And they immediately respond, the right and far right immediately, "No, we would never attack Venezuela for oil." Then why did you seize an oil tanker this morning? I thought you were going after cocaine and fentanyl. You know, the fentanyl made in Mexico, not Venezuela. Is there a bit of cocaine made in Venezuela? Yeah, but it's only made in certain spots because coca only grows in certain regions at certain altitudes with certain soil chemistry, with certain humidity and rainfall. Okay. Perfect conditions exist in Colombia and Peru and Bolivia. Only some of the conditions exist in Venezuela. Okay. If you notice in the 80s, when the MPs, the Green Berets, the CIA, and the DEA, and the DIA were all fighting in Colombia against Pablo Escobar, we were fighting in Colombia. We weren't fighting in Venezuela, blaming Venezuela for something they didn't do. Oh, and Trump wants less cocaine? Did he tell Don Jr. that? Oh, and then he cuts off Colombia completely of U.S. funding, which is going to result in, drum roll please, more cocaine imported into the United States. Okay? This is how ass backwards this is. Okay? This has nothing to do with anything they're fucking talking about. All it is a consolidation of power. And then when you see this case come up about immunity versus liability, they're trying to blanket clear, preemptively clear any military personnel, any cabinet secretary, any military contractor now of any liability, any criminal responsibility, nothing. They can go ape shit anywhere in the world, including Main Street, USA, and they'll have no liability, no law informing their actions. This is what Kavanaugh is presenting to us in the Floor Corporation case. And if that doesn't worry you or it doesn't concern you, you need to read up more. Okay. Now, I don't know about the truth about the Florida Detention Center, but I keep seeing posts and stories and news articles that paint a pretty horrific picture, including a 2x2 steel cage they called the box. You know what the North Vietnamese put our pilots in Vietnam in the prison camps in the Hanoi Hilton? The Green Beret who escaped in Vietnam, my father-in-law knew him personally, I think. Garza, Captain Garza, because he was staff sergeant when he escaped and he got promoted, field promoted when he escaped. His buddy didn't get out because he had no shoes. So the other guy says, "I'll never keep up, so just go." They broke out of the cages they were in, and he took off, and he actually made it back to his unit. There's awful shit going on. There's awful shit going on with these ICE raids. Put two and two together. They want to make sure that nobody can sue the contractor at what is it? Alligator Alcatraz, the dumbest name ever. Um, or any of the other, what now, 18, 20 sites they're building. This was all supposed to be about immediate deportation, right to Seacot, Nicaragua. Now they're building hundreds of thousands of cells and detainment facilities to house people run by military contractors. See how we all looped around? See where we ended up? Okay. I got to jump. We got to do a battery test for power protection of a client tonight, and I got to manage my Padawans on site remotely. But I'll leave you with this again: be independent, be independent minded, vote independent, run for local office as an independent. Democrats and the Republicans and the left right orthodoxy talked about that plenty of times. Okay. You got two parties argue about everything except where the money goes. Okay. It's the left right orthodoxy. We need to break the stranglehold on America well before we can fix the courts, well before we can hold a dear leader and his goombas responsible for their illegal activities. We've got to fix Congress. And I think Congress won't be fixed until we get a strong enough independent coalition caucus inside of the congressional halls to make a difference. Okay. It's one of my things about California I don't like. We're basically in the state level a one party system, and it's Democrat. I don't think that's healthy. Okay. We have people who want to turn America, the American legal system and the Constitution on its head so they can do whatever they want, harm anybody they want with impunity, steal, rape, rob anything they want out of our society. Our society is now for their pickings. That's what Brett Kavanaugh's freaking out about, melting down in a Supreme Court hearing about. They want it all. The wealth needs to be concentrated into the business political class, and the rest of you all can fuck off and die. Okay. They're making that extraordinarily clear. Okay. So think about, we can't fix Kavanaugh unless we fix Congress. Congress has got to impeach his dumbass. Actually, I think Thomas and Alito have to go first for bribery and then be charged, criminally charged. Okay. Thomas took hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of bribes. Nobody is doing shit. Why? Because we have a dysfunctional Congress. A dysfunctional Congress that's being run by the left-right orthodoxy, not by American standards, not by any world standard either. Hell, the French just threw Sarkozy in prison. Korea, South Korea, threw two presidents and a president's wife in prison. All this year. Bolsonaro's in Brazil going to prison. 28 years in prison. What is America doing? Furthering the crime. With the Supreme Court's justice telling you how to further the crime. Okay. I got some work to do. I'll talk to you all very soon. Until next time, please think about it.